Good afternoon. So we're here to discuss a couple different things. First, I'll say, thank you to all of our partners that are here. We have the FBI, the DA's office, our Office of Forensic Science. We also have police department personnel, past and present, that have worked on some of the cases that you will hear us discuss very shortly. Some of the things that we will go over today, obviously we will tell you what we can say at this point. You all will have many questions, I'm sure, and there are some things that we will not be able to answer today or right at this moment because there are still some active investigations that are taking place and some components of that we're still working through. But let's just discuss what has gotten us here today and why we are here. So all of this goes back, it starts on November 22nd, 2023. We have an incident that happens in Pennypack Park on the trail there, 2800 home, 8:15 in the morning. A male biker is on a bike. He is riding at some point looking to pass another individual on a bike. He yells out to that individual that he's looking to pass. At some point, that individual becomes agitated. As that complainant is passing the offender, he is slashed with a machete-type knife, causing injuries to his hands and his arms. The next 2 days later, November 24th, we have a second incident, which is reported to us at 9 a.m. Two complainants, male and female, are walking along the trail when they are attacked by a male on a bike with a machete, also suffering injuries to their arms and hands. And that's the incident that this male is charged for thus far. We then have another incident that happens on November 25th. However, it's not reported to us until December 6th, in which 8:30 a.m. a female is on the trail, at which a male on a bike with a machete approaches her and attempts to attack her. However, she is able to flee from that male and get away unharmed. That leads us, I believe we do some press on that, the information, getting it out there. You all report that, via your respective outlets. Leads us to December 17th. 8th District Officer responds to a report of a male on a bike inside of the park on a trail with a large machete attached to his bike. That officer responds to that location, is able to locate this individual. The officer is able to stop the male on the bike, able to secure the machete, and able to ultimately get the male in custody. The male refuses to provide any in terms of his identifiers, doesn't provide a name or anything of that sort. The male is fingerprinted, at which point we are able to discover that the male is Elias Diaz, 46-year-old male. DNA is collected from him in reference to the incidents I just described, and as a result of some of those results returning to us, we have reason to believe that Mr. Diaz is also connected to a number of additional incidents. As a result of conducting some additional further investigation, we have additional DNA results that have returned so far. Still waiting on final confirmation of additional DNA results. However, everything we have at this point leads us to believe that Mr. Diaz is also involved or a person of interest regarding the murder of Rebecca Park, which occurred in July of 2003, as well as possibly 2 or 3 other sexual assaults that occurred in Fairmount Park over a period of time. We will, again, be able to have all of the indications at this point that he will be, those results will come back positive and he may be charged as early as later today or tomorrow. With that being said, just want to point out a couple different things. One, I'm going to turn the mic over to First Deputy Venora to go into detail of those incidents, one of those being the murder of Rebecca Park and some of the other sexual assaults. But just want to point out the fact that a lot of times we do these press conferences around violent crime as it relates to homicides and shootings, and many of our districts that are the core components for that. However, this is great police work by an 8th District officer, an area of the city that doesn't see that same type of violent crime, but certainly seeing this type of crime occur. The quick response by the officer, being diligent enough to respond to the location and doing everything that we ask our officers to do each and every day and going and just doing good police work, as well as all of the hard investigative work that has been taking place around these cases for the past 20 years. And as you'll see, there are many folks over to my right that have been involved in this process over the past 20 years to keep these investigations going. And so one message to victims and the family of victims that are out there, we don't stop. We don't stop until we're able to get people in custody for the crimes that are committed against individuals. And that's what we do. That's the oath that we take. And a proud day to know that we have been able to possibly give some closure to some families and some victims that have been a part of these incidents involving this male. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Venor to provide some additional details surrounding these incidents.
Good afternoon. I'm going to give an overview of the pattern, which included 2 sexual assaults, an attempt, and a homicide, which included a sexual assault. First one dating back to April 30th, 2003. A lot of detective work, a lot of police work, and a lot of help from the community went into these investigations over the years. So I'm going to talk about them. I'm going to give you a very brief overview. A lot of you have the details of these from past reports, and I'm going to tell you how we got to where we are today with this investigation. So April 30th, 21-year-old female, Kelly Drive in Fountain Green, was out for a jog 10:30 at night, and she reported that she was attacked by a male she described to us as a Hispanic male, about 5'7", in his 20s, medium built, and she described him as having an earring and dark hair. And in each of these cases, they all described a purple metallic 10-speed bicycle that the male was riding during the incidents. In that particular case, our special victims unit at the time processed the crime scene and was able to collect DNA evidence, which was later submitted into the CODIS database, which we have. Following that investigation, a few months later, in July 16th, 2003, Southwest Detective Division took a report of a missing female. All right, it's a 30-year-old female by the name of Rebecca Park. She was a student. She was living in the area there, attending college. That report we did the very next day. I happened to be working there at the time. We did media on the missing person. We put out information. We thought it was odd. She left all her belongings, including her car keys, her cell phone, everything in her apartment. We now know that we believe she went out for a jog. She never returned to her house. That investigation led detectives to collect tips after the news was done. I asked retired Detective Chris Morano, who's now a supervisory agent at the Attorney General's office. Him and his detectives that he was working with at the time took a call in to Southwest Detectives. Woman described driving through the area, 3500 Conshohocken Avenue, hearing somebody screaming in the evening or in the morning, but they didn't get out to investigate. Her and her husband just kept driving. Detective Morano and other detectives proceeded to that area. They walked into the wooded area, and in that wooded area, they found the body of Rebecca Park buried under dirt, leaves, and some rocks that were in the area. The Homicide Division immediately began an investigation, and from that crime scene, DNA evidence was also collected and submitted into CODIS. So just moving forward to October 25th, 2003, West River Drive, lot number 2, 37-year-old female in this case reported that at 6:15 at night, just south of the Falls Bridge, offender attempted to drag her to the river's edge. She was injured during the attack with wounds to her neck, her arms. She was able to fight that individual off, but this victim gave a very distinct description, and it matched the same description given to us by the victim, the 21-year-old victim, on April 30th. Moving forward, there was really no DNA in that case, but we felt that it fit the pattern because of the description, and it was also an Hispanic male in his 20s, and the time frame was very close to that. Now, all during these incidents, especially where we had the living victims, back then in 2003, we were able to use our sketch artist that we had down in our graphic arts, and the images that you see below were created from, the composite sketches were created from the witnesses that sat down with our graphic arts personnel. So, and as you can see, looking back, some of the images, if this is the individual, are very, very close to what he looked like in 2007. In 2007, there's another incident that occurs in the 8th District, not too far from where the machete attacks occurred that last a few weeks ago. August 11, 2007, Frankfurt and Solly in Pennypack Park. Individual was taking a walk on the trail when she was attacked by the male. This individual was sexually assaulted, and she was about 25 years old. She also gave the same description of the male on the bike, and in this case, DNA was collected again. All this DNA was submitted to CODIS. At some point later, these cases were all matched together, and we knew that we had a pattern of DNA, and we knew we had the same offender in these cases. Now, moving forward to when genealogy became something that we began to use in law enforcement. As you all know, we had the boy in the box case a few years ago. Last year, we announced that we were able to identify the individual. We submitted this case a few years ago to the same analyst in the genealogy. Ryan Gallagher from our forensic science division is going to explain the steps that we took, but we solicited help of the FBI that are here today, Special Victims Unit. That genealogy led us to more investigative leads, and them investigative leads led directly to an individual with this name, and I'll let Ryan explain how we got there. But we could not find this individual. He was not able to be located. He only had one contact with the police previous to this one, and like I said, it was he had two. One was for an FTA. We did not have his DNA on file, so we had no idea where to find this individual. One of the things I wanted to mention here is retired Captain John Darby from the Special Victims Unit is here today. I remember this case distinctly from when I was in public affairs. John and his detectives and supervisors went out to the park on the anniversary of this, handed out flyers every year, soliciting information, and never, ever let these cases go cold. He constantly worked these cases. He still remembers them to this day. In fact, he told me today when he seen the reports, he started thinking that this individual appears to be the same individual. So as the commissioner said, we're still waiting for final confirmation, and then we'll discuss with the DA to see if we have enough probable cause. I'm going to turn things over to Ryan Gallagher to explain the genealogy and what was done to develop the other investigative leads.
Hello, everyone. So with the, as Deputy Venor mentioned, there was CODIS uploads in these cases. All of the cases were linked together, so we knew it was the same unknown individual, and they were uploaded to CODIS. There were no links through CODIS. There still are no links through CODIS, but we were able to use that same DNA that we found at the crime scenes and process it using genealogy. Several years ago, there was a with advancements in the DNA technology, we were able to take a new look at this case to see if there was anything further that could be done. Using DNA from Parabon Nanolabs, we were able to develop a composite sketch of using the unknown male's DNA. This sketch was the DNA composite sketch that was released in August of 2021. While the DNA sketch was one tool that we used, we also continued with the genealogy. Using the public genealogy databases that are available to see if there's any familial links that we could find from this, using this DNA. Working with the genealogy from Parabon, it was identified that there were some distant familial relationships within these databases. The team at PPD continued to run down leads and approach family members in the tree that contained more than 1,000 family members. It was a very extensive tree. The familial links were all over the country and as well in some in Puerto Rico. And at the time of the investigation, there were no clear associations to the Philadelphia area. Continued investigation into the family led to the tree being narrowed down to one particular branch of the tree within one family. As we're working with multiple law enforcement partners, including the FBI, to include or eliminate family members of this family, Elias Diaz was identified as a potential person of interest during this investigation. While this investigation is ongoing, he was arrested. Elias Diaz was arrested So we knew him by name. Elias Diaz was arrested for these recent aggravated assaults in Pennypack Park. And at this hour, the confirmation into his DNA, as Deputy said, is still ongoing. Thank you. I'll turn it over to DA Krasner.
Thank you. So I want to make sure that before I finish my very brief remarks, that anyone who may have been victimized by this offender is able to come forward. Obviously, you can call 911. Please do, whether you're a witness, whether you're a victim, whether you reported it, whether you didn't. Please come forward, call 911, or if you would prefer, if you're more comfortable, you can contact what has generally been known as Women Organized Against Rape. This is a 24-hour phone number, and the number is 215-985-3333. You can also contact Women Against Abuse, 215-686-7082. Whatever you do, though, it is extremely important that we get justice for everyone who has been affected by such a predatory and such a concerning danger to the community. What we have seen here, I think, is an amazing example of diligence on the part of law enforcement, excellent detective work, excellent police work going back years, and going back to a time when law enforcement did not have all the tools that we have now. This case goes back to 2003, and since 2003, this suspect has been riding a bike, and he has been outrunning justice ever since then. Well, something happened around 2021, I believe, but something happened recently when DNA had advanced to the point where this kind of an effort to locate the guy who's living off the grid, doesn't have much of a criminal record, and just keeps delivering harm, almost exclusively to women, but just keeps delivering harm to people. Something happened. Science outran this guy's bicycle. Science got him. And that is a beautiful thing. In the same way that the Golden State Killer was caught in California after an unending sequence of rapes and murders by means of tissue paper, Kleenex, thrown into a trash can that enabled this kind of genealogical research and ultimately brought him to justice in old age. In the same way that happened, it became possible for this case. And law enforcement did an amazing job of seeing the potential to use these tools and follow up. I say this just to make one more pitch, especially at this time when we're making our resolutions. We have some new leadership coming into office in Philadelphia, to make one more pitch that we need to invest in forensic science even more heavily in Philadelphia. We need to give these excellent detectives, all of these great investigators, these great police, we need to give them the tools that they need so they can catch more people like this, so they can close more cold cases, so that we can bring to justice someone who is a menace to Philadelphians, especially to women. We need to have these tools, and I look forward to a new year when we can all work together on that. As for the details of what the DA's office is going to do, obviously we are going to very vigorously prosecute every case that comes from this, but I would like to introduce our Chief of Homicide and Non-Fatal Shootings in the Philadelphia DA's office, and that, of course, is ADA Joanne Pescator, to offer further comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you, DA Krasner. Good afternoon. I fully anticipate on charging Elias Diaz with murder and related offenses with regard to the homicide of Rebecca Park that dates back to 2003. I fully anticipate that we will have the results of the DNA before today is out, and I will call in those charges for murder and many other offenses with regard to the case of Rebecca Park.
At this time, we'll open it up for any brief questions. Yes.
Commissioner, can you just help us a little bit with the timeline? Because I didn't realize, did you guys actually know his name a couple of years ago? Was that during the August of 2021 press conference at SVU where, I'm a little...
We did not know his name, and again, I'll let Deputy Venora step forward. We just had some additional information, but not his name.
No, and I don't know if anybody from the FBI wants to go further with this, but when the FBI this year in April, was able to get to that branch that Ryan would talked about. We were able to eliminate people along that branch, but his name came up. However, we had no idea if he was even still living. There was information given to us when we started to search for him, and they started to search for him, that he was in the area of Kensington. Somebody said he overdosed. No one's seen him for a time, so we had no idea where to find him, or if he was living at a residence or was unsheltered. At that point, we could not find him.
Sorry, jumping off of that, at the same time, not only was the information about the new age progression images released, but also his mannerisms. Anything with the recent investigation from Pennypack Park, knife in the left hand, anything, did that play into what your witnesses, your complaints from most recently were telling investigators?
Well, it's all part of the investigation, but obviously he's on a bike. It's not the same bike. He's got a sharp weapon. I mean, his behavior is the same. So obviously, it made us stop and look at this individual. He's 46 years old. He was said to be in his 20s then, so that started to match up.
Deputy Commissioner, I remember that when you had talked about it, there were some marks that I guess the victims had also talked about. Have you been able to see or view any of those?
I have not. I'm not going to comment on that until we.
And have you talked to him yet? Have you interviewed him?
I'm not going to comment on that either.
Deputy Commissioner, any sense of where Diaz has been the last 20 years? Any sense that he's been?
I can tell you this. We received some information that he was living in the park there. Crime scene investigators and detectives from Northeast Detectives went out with special victims. We were able to find an area today that we believe he was using as a shelter, and we served a search warrant and collected evidence from there. But that's in the recent past. I can't tell you where he was for the last 20 years.
Is that behind Lincoln High School? Behind Lincoln High School?
Yes.
And can you go through his mugshots here? I think there was 07, and then 15, I think was the alcohol, was 07 drug-related?
Just to point out one thing, because he asked the question as did we know his whereabouts. We didn't know we were looking for this person, all right? And so just be very clear in that in terms of it's not as if we had this information knowing who we were looking for. In terms of his 2007 arrest, I believe that was a narcotic arrest. In 2015, that is an FTA from that 2007 narcotic arrest. And then the last one is from the incidents that just occurred. And again, as has been explained in this process, this has been an ongoing process through 20 years that have ultimately led us to today. And so that work hasn't stopped.
Are there any other incidents you think he could be linked to now that you?
Well, as you heard the DA, that we're encouraging people to come forward if they know of anything, think of anything, unsure. But that's something we're going to continue to do is look at every incident that we've had that could possibly, be involving this individual or anything that's closely related. Even you asked the question as to are there similarities. That's something that we do on a regular anyway, but that will definitely be done with this case, just like any other.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Did anybody from the police department or district attorney's office get a hold of Rebecca Park's family? And if so, what was said back and forth?
I'm not going to comment on what was said. We found out that our father is now deceased. He passed away last year. We did get a hold of a sibling, and detectives did speak. I'm not going to comment on the conversation.
And what about the other victims?
At least 2 of them were contacted by detectives, and they're part of the investigation.
Commissioner, maybe for anybody up there, we've done dozens of stories over the years with information released. Can you talk about the bigger picture here? This is a major break in an investigation that many people on this side would say has haunted those in our community.
Yeah, it's haunted people in this community. It's haunted people in this department. As Deputy Venor alluded to, you have Captain Darby, who is right over to the right of me, and this was important enough for him today to come back. And that's what that means, as well as many other individuals that have worked on this case over the years. As a police officer, or as an investigator, these are the type of cases that haunt you until you're able to bring some closure to it. Just having a conversation on the way up here with someone else, you always want to think about in terms of how can you bring closure to these type of incidents? How can you give the family something? You've heard me say it over and over again. One of the key components of our job is we want to be the fixers, right? Today, we're able to fix something for somebody in the sense of giving them some level of closure. It doesn't bring back, Rebecca Park. It doesn't undo the incidents and the trauma that those victims had to incur. But what it does is it gives them some sense of knowing that there was somebody working along the way the entire time. You heard all of that, the information back here, that the DNA work that's being done at the Office of Forensic Science, that's going to be done, and people never know that that work's being done. And so that's a part of this, is not to just come up here and you know, it's not a victory lap. It's more so to let folks know that this is the work that's constantly being done each and every day on every case. Because our job and what we want to do is to ultimately bring justice, you know, for families that have had to go through incidents like this.
I know Captain Darby's probably thought he'd never have another news conference again, but I was wondering if we could ask him his thoughts today. Come on up.
Thank you, Commissioner. It's quite a significant day. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm grateful for the opportunity to stand before you one more time, as I did many times over the years, because I represent investigators, supervisors, certainly in the special victims area, but obviously combined in this particular case. I was assigned to the Special Victims Unit. For those that don't know, I'm retired from the police department as a captain. I was assigned to the Special Victims Unit as commanding officer back in 2003, March of 2003. 1 month later, we received the initial report of the attack on the drive, on Kelly Drive. And it wasn't just one. In July, Rebecca Park, our military reservist, was killed by the same individual. We know that now. And a third assault in October of that year. And then 4 years later, this individual surfaces again, this time up in the Northeast under similar circumstances. I can tell you the interviews of the victims, they were sobering. And the result was, and I'm sure there's many investigators in this room, that when you get cases like this, that they haunt you. Investigators will tell you, they go home, the last thing they think about before they go to bed at night, the first thing they think about when they wake up in the morning is cases like these. So the incredible amount of work that was put into this case, it's where we find ourselves today. So there's a powerful message up here and in this room, and that is, one, that we never forget. And number two, when you look at the incredible amount of expertise, the intelligence, the commitment, the devotion to cases like this, it's the best that we can offer. As a result, I'm just gratified to be here to share the moment. We have more work to do, obviously. It'll be over when this male is formally arrested, is prosecuted, and put away for the rest of his life. But I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Thank you, Commissioner.
I think that was the best way to end it, hearing right from, you know, someone that's been so passionately involved in this. And so we will update you as this progresses through hopefully the end of this evening sometime. You'll get updates from Public Affairs as to what's happening at that point. All right? Thank you so much.